Sizzlers. Today we're doing some holiday baking. We're making some delicious hojarascas, so let's get started. Alright, as you guys know, I am not much of a baker, which is why I'm using my grandma's recipe. I just made a little tweaks here and there just to try to elevate it all together. I made a couple of mistakes along the way, but at the end of this video, I'll let you guys know what those were so you guys don't make the same one. So the first thing we're doing is preheating our oven 350 degrees because that way it's ready by the time you're done. We're going to need 1 cup of lard. This is pig lard. You can always use a vegetable one, but I don't recommend it. This one is just delicious. So we need 1 cup, and this is 16 ounces. Half of that is 8 ounces, which equals 1 cup. This is pretty hard to measure because the lard gets all sticky. So what I like to do is when you open it, it has a middle point, and I just take it out and cut it through the middle, and that should be the 1 cup. If it's a little less and a little more, it really just saves you the trouble of getting your hands all dirty. Now that we have our cup of lard, we're going to add it into our bowl. So this works best if it's room temperature, so make sure you leave it out. Now we're going to use our hand mixer to mix it. Now that we mix this, we're adding half a cup of sugar, and don't worry if this is too fast for you. I'm leaving the measurements in the bottom. Now that that's mixed, I'm adding 1 tablespoon of vanilla and 1/4 a cup of cinnamon water. And what this is that I boiled a cinnamon stick in a cup of water. Make sure that it is cooled off because if it's hot, it'll melt the lard and you don't want that. So 1/2 a cup in here. Now that we have our mixture, we're going to be using 2½ cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. The nutmeg is very flavorful, so we just want to add a little bit of that. So as you can see, this is very dirty, and I don't want to stick my hands in there, get them all greasy. So I'm going to add a little bit of the flour so it just unsticks. Now it's time to get really messy. We'll be adding our flour in here and mixing it up with our hands. Now at first this might feel a little funny because like I said, the lard is so sticky, but once you incorporate the flour really well in there, it should feel a lot more different, more like a very wet Play-Doh. Now this is totally optional, but I'm going to be adding a baggie of these nuts, and these are already cookie pieces, so it'll be perfect. You don't have to do this. This is just the way that I incorporated it to make it a little more delicious. You kind of just fold it in here. Now, if you did my lard trick and you just cut it down the middle and you just happen to get a little bit extra and it is super sticky, then don't worry about it. Just add a little bit more flour to where this is the consistency. As you can see, it's sticky, but not entirely too much. And this is what you want. So it's still super soft for us to roll out. What we're going to do is put it in saran wrap, stick it in the fridge for about 20 minutes till it's a little bit harder, then we could get to rolling. So it's been 20 minutes and we have our dough here. Now it's time to extend and cut it. So we're going to need some flour to get your surface nice and floured. Make sure that it is clean. And also our palote, which I never know how to say this in English. So if you know, rolling pin maybe? I'm gonna say rolling pin. Okay. Now you don't want to roll it all out, so just get about half of it. Now this is not like when you're making tortillas that you grab it and you move it and extend it. This is not like this. You roll it gently to your desired size. I usually say about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch. Now that we rolled this out, get your cookie cutter. You can get whatever shape you like. I'm doing stars since it's going to be for Christmas, and just cut it. Now you don't need to grease your pan for these because they do have lard. I just found these cute cookie sheet things to put under, and they're very festive, so I'm using those. And make sure that you do separate them a little bit because they're gonna expand just a tiny bit, not too much. Now what you do with the leftover dough is that you clump it back together, you roll it out again, and you keep making your cookies. Now for this, we're gonna stick them in the oven, 350 degrees for 15 to 20 minutes. It just depends on your oven, the size of the cookie, and the thickness. My best telltale sign is that once they start getting a little golden brown, they're ready. Now while our cookies are baking, we're going to get some sugar and cinnamon. So we could give them a little sugar and cinnamon bath. This has to be done while they're still hot so it could really stick to the cookie. It kind of melts in there. And I'm gonna leave it up to you how much sugar and how much cinnamon you want. A lot of people like more sugar, others like more cinnamon, so it's definitely up to you. But this is kind of what it looks like. As you can see, these are still hot and they're perfectly golden on the edges. So we'll just grab our cookie and give it our sugar bath. And this is what our cookie looks like. Just let them cool off and they're ready to enjoy. All right, Sizzlers, so this is what our first batch of hojarascas looks like. They are so delicious. One dough is going to make you about 24 cookies if you make them this shape and size. If you make them a little bit smaller, it'll probably be more. If you make them a little bit thicker, it'll be less. So it's definitely up to you. The cookie dough itself is not super sweet, but it's because we give it that sugar cinnamon bath and it just makes a whole difference. I made a couple mistakes along the way with my grandma's recipe. And the first one was that I melted the lard into the wet ingredients and then mixed it with the dry. That was a huge failure. I also tried to do it in the mixer and that didn't work. This has its way of doing it every time. So this was the method that I had to call out my mom and she explained it to me, and that's the method that I ended up using, the old way. But I also added the nuts and the nutmeg. I feel like it just really elevated the cookie altogether. You don't have to add that if you don't like to, but it does make a huge difference. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Until next time.